There are lots of signs of childhood trauma, but many of us who have childhood trauma don't even know and don't even recognize that we came from trauma. I myself went through adulthood, had 3 children, created a business. I was married, had a home, and I had no idea that I was a child of trauma. And that is true for many of us. I've been a life coach for over 2 decades now, and I worked with people privately before I was a certified life coach in a one-to-one capacity as a fitness trainer. And I can tell you unequivocally that most, if not all of the people that I've coached and had one-to-one relationships with in a coaching capacity have struggled with trauma. We just didn't know it. We grew up in an age where children were to be seen and not heard. We grew up with the Dr. Spocks. Dr. Spock was my mother's best friend, and Dr. Spock said, "Don't you dare pick up a crying baby. She's just looking for attention." Dr. Spock was an idiot, in my opinion. So we grew up, people of my age, I'm 60, and many of the people that I coach are in my age group. Some are younger, but a lot of them were born out of the 50s, the 60s, some of even the 40s. I'm actually coaching someone who's actually approaching 83 right now. And we grew up with the mindset that you just did not give children attention. You ignored children. Your children were needy and they were a burden if you tended to them. And so we had parents, an entire generation of people that thought that the best thing in the world was to ignore a child. And if a child was dancing or playing too loud or tugging on your apron strings, that child was to be ignored. That child was to be ridiculed. That child was to be punished because that was a child that was looking for attention. And so I go through my adulthood and I become a mom and I'm aware that my parents could have done a better job. And so I give my kids what I didn't get, which is very childlike thinking. Never really thinking that there was so much more that I didn't know and so much more that I could have learned. I just wasn't even that self aware. And so I had my children thinking, oh, well, I never really heard I love you, and it never felt tender. So I'm going to give my kids that. My mom never spent time with me playing, so I'll play with my children. I'll get on the floor and I'll roll around and we'll play with Play Doh. We were never allowed to like make a mess in my house. So I'm going to finger paint with my children. And my mom never really let us have any decisions in what we wore. So I'm going to make sure that my kids have some decisions around what kind of clothes they want to wear, within reason, obviously. And so I swore it would never happen to me. I swore that I would never do to my kids what my mom did. But I was about 33 when my life really imploded. And I think that's a very significant age, even biblically. It has a lot of symbolism, especially in Christianity, where Christ was 33 when he was sacrificed and resurrected from the dead. And there's a lot of symbolism around the age of 33. And I even find that's when a lot of my clients that eventually take my courses or they eventually want one-to-one, they'll say, I started listening to you when I was about 31, 32, 33. And so it's not uncommon for us to start going through this awakening, like, where have I been my whole life, which is amazing. And that might be you. And there's so many wounds of trauma that most people who grew up in an age where children were to be seen and not heard don't even recognize as trauma. Anxiety, the fear of criticism, the fear of making a mistake, the fear of judgment, rumination, codependency, this over emotional dependency upon others for a sense of selfhood, you could be a codependent martyr and position yourself as the son of an alcoholic father who the son can't stand him, but he can't break the addiction of enabling his father either. So the martyred identity, poor me, look how I have to take care of my father. So his identity is the poor me, the codependent poor me in the caretaking of his father, not even realizing that he hasn't carved out an identity, an autonomy separate from being his father's caretaker, which his mother enabled because she didn't want to deal with the dad, and the father enabled because he needed an enabler. So that's a sign of trauma. But when you're codependent, you come from an alcoholic home, you come from these dynamics, you don't have that awareness. You don't even know that you're doing anything wrong. You live below the veil of consciousness. You're living in a matrix. It's the trauma matrix. And the big cosmic joke is you don't even know it. And you think that you're being controlled outside of you. And you have no awareness that you can control so much more than you actually really think you can control. This is us allowing external experiences to keep us stuck in our trauma, us believing and feeling because it was at one point true that what's happening inside of me is creating this chaos inside of me. That was true as a child. But once this codependent matrix, trauma matrix seeps inside of every cell of your being, dear one, now it's us. Now it's us. And we are engaging with our physical senses in a way, and even our psychology, the part of ourselves that we call the self, the awareness piece of us is like looking at the self and listening to the self, thinking this is all there is. And that is like living in Plato's cave. If you haven't read or learned about the allegory of the cave by Plato, it's very interesting. I teach it in Soul School, and I really recommend it if this is resonating with you. So even that, living below the veil and reacting to what's happening outside of me and failing to realize that I am addicted or attached to what's happening outside of me. It's this disgusting feedback loop. And yet, biblically, scripturally, we are being told, and even if you understand neurology, if you understand even quantum science, if you understand consciousness, consciousness itself states all of these, I would say, these facets of what it is to be a human, all these different teachings that make us us, are all saying the same thing. And I think that's where we're going. One day we're going to be speaking about therapy from this holistic view, this lens, this viewpoint where we're talking about philosophy and metaphors and symbolism because the brain likes that. The mind likes that, right? We'd be talking about archetypes and we'll be talking about neurology and neurological patterns. We'll be talking about the id, the ego, and the superego. And we're going to be talking about what Carl Jung talks about, the collective unconscious. And we're going to be talking about spirituality, blending that, not denomination, not my God is better than your God. Not that. That's silly. That's humbug. That's incredibly emotionally backwards. Like it's not even intelligent. It's not even intelligent to think that one God is greater than the other God. Come on, there's a big bang. There's one God that created everything. Like, can we get past that and like be big humans and intellectual about this, But as long as we believe in domination, my God is bigger than your God. I have no tolerance for the God that you have been conditioned to believe in. Because let's face it, if you're born in one part of the world, you believe in one God. Did you choose that God? You didn't choose that God. You were born into that God. You were born into that thinking. Okay. But anyway, if you stand back, stand back, stand back, stand back, stand back, stand back, keep going, keep going, keep going before humans could speak, before humans could really think, before the wheel, before fire. Where did we all come from? Probably one God, right? One. Okay. That's what we should be paying attention to. But I do believe that therapy is gonna be moving in that direction where we're not gonna have these separate categories of what makes a human, the psychological self, neurological self, physiological self, spiritual self, unconscious, conscious. No, 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 it's all one thing. And that's my approach. And that's what I teach in my systems in the 12-week breakthrough method, in the 8-week masterclass, and eventually Soul School, a course in the quantum science of love consciousness. For those who resonate with this message, maybe that's why you found this message today. You've tried the therapies, you've tried the medication, you've tried the 10, 20, $30,000 retreats. You still come back to misery. You still come back to a pattern. You still come back to self-sabotage. You're still ruminating. Not your fault. There's a process to healing, and it is not just talk therapy. 45 minutes, time's up, Tony Soprano. You gotta go. That's not the answer. It is so much more, it's so much deeper than that. It is so much more complex than that, but yet simplistic. If you really understand what we need to do is reprogram the subconscious mind. However, it's like you gotta be careful who you follow and who you listen to that's telling you this is the way to reprogram your mind, because if their life is effed up, then your life is gonna be effed up. So whoever you, are hoping to learn this information from, just be sure that you like where their life is going. You like what they represent, because that's gonna be important. Or you know what? You learn to do it on your own like I did. But I've just created a roadmap for people. So it just makes things so much easier. However, so if you come from this background of children should be seen and not heard, you're not alone. But there are tremendous consequences. And I want to talk about one consequence that will really ring true for you, that if you've ever doubted that you had childhood trauma, just ask yourself this question. And what sparked this lesson was an interview that the darling Gabor Mate did. And I heard him say this and I was like, bingo, like you are amazing, Mr. Gabor Mate. You really freaking get it. And it brought me back to a story where I was 12 years old and I had this little friend group, which is really different because I had no friends really. So I had a friend group for the first time in my life and I was so excited about it. Of course, I screwed it up as the adult child of an alcoholic and being codependent. Of course, I screwed it up. Why would you want to be my friend? Why? Why? Whatever. I digress. That's for another session. But anyway, this girl in the group, her real name was Diane, and she took a liking to me, and she was so sweet and she was so darling. And she had a BFF who's also, her name was also Lisa. And Diane and I, back in the day, back in the 70s, in the park that we were in, we were swinging on a metal swing. We don't have metal swings today. Like, kids of today don't, what's a metal swing? Yeah, well, if you're of my age group, especially if you're from Queens, like, we had these metal chains, all rusty metal chains that we could have gotten tetanus and died in, like, 6 hours, right? But this is what we had to play with. This was our park. So we're swinging on this metal swing. I was sitting down and Diane was standing up, and Diane was pushing it one way, and I was using my feet to, like, create momentum in the opposite way, and we were really, like, really pushing to see how far. Kids don't do that today, at least I don't think so. But anyway, her other BFF was very jealous, and she took another swing, and the swing next to us, and she threw it at me or us. And I guess she's being a 12-year-old kid, she didn't really understand the cause and effect nature of that. But the second swing clipped me in my head, and it gashed me open, and I fell off the swing. I passed out for, I don't know how long, couple of seconds, whatever it was, and when the kids were all gathered around me, I could tell by their face something bad happened. Like, I didn't know what happened. I don't even remember the pain. I just remember, like, looking up and like, "Oh, they look upset." And then I went like this, and there was blood gushing. It looked like a horror movie. And they were just trying to get me on the back of this kid Richie's bicycle, and back in the day, it was a banana seat, and he took me all the way home, took me all the way home. By the time I got home, it looked like the movie Carrie, like I was covered in blood because the scalp bleeds a lot. But here's the trauma. I didn't tell my parents. If you come from trauma, when bad things happen to you, You never told your parents. Why? You didn't feel safe. And Gabor Mate nailed it. If you came from trauma, you never felt safe. So when I was bullied and chased home from a bazaar back in Queens, it was this church bazaar. These 9 girls chased me home after the one ringleader burnt me in the arm with a cigarette. I didn't tell my mom. I ran into the to my house terrified, booked it home. I can still remember being that terrified, like this band of I was afraid they were gonna kill me, like, I'm not joking. The terror, I could still feel it. My mother saw the terror in me, and then she saw the mark on my arm, and she said, "Who did that?" That's how I confessed. But I would have gone home, and I would have taken all that terror, and I would have went and pulled the covers over my head with it. That's trauma. What the trauma is, I have no safe place to go to. I never felt like I could tell my parents anything. There was no lap to crawl into. There was no, "Come here, tell me more." There was just, "Well, what did you do to start it?" "Well, what did you do, Lisa? What did you do, Lisa?" There was nothing but judgment and humiliation. There was never a soft place to go to, never. And even in the happy times, there was always that critical eye like, "Ah, don't get too happy. Don't get too happy. Bring home a blue ribbon. No, don't give her too much praise." Like, "Oh, that's nice. Put it over there." There was nothing. There was no praise. There was no validation. There was no affirmation. There was no love. There was nothing. My mother was a stoic, but negative stoic person. She was rigid. She was cold. She withheld love on purpose. My father withheld love on purpose, I think, because in his head, he's completely wrong, but in his head, if I praise her, she's going to get a big head and she's going to become obnoxious. So if I keep her down, then she's always gonna seek my approval. I think that's was more my father's motivation. She's always gonna seek my approval, always have control over her. He did the same thing to my mother, and she died under his thumb like that. So if bad things happen to you as a child and you did not tell, then the trauma is the lack of safety because children should be able to tell their parents everything. Things happened to me when I was younger. I never told my mother or my father anything. I was always afraid that I was going to get in trouble, that I would be looked upon as a burden, a pain in the ass. And that's pretty much when my father saw the hole in my head because how that story ended up was I took a shower, I changed, I think I threw away my bra, I threw away my clothes because I didn't want my mom to see the blood. And I said to my sister before I went to bed because I was a little nervous, like, I couldn't see the hole in my head. So I said, "Kim, can you see this? Can you tell me?" That's my sister's real name. "Can you tell me if this I have a hole in my head?" And she screamed, and she called my parents, and my parents came. My father came, and he said, "GD it, Lisa, get up. Now I gotta take you to the freaking hospital. You got a freaking hole in your head." That was the response. It wasn't, "How did this happen?" Nothing. There was no follow-up. There was no inquiry about the relationship between me and my friends. It was just like, "You're a burden. We've gotta get this over with." And there was no tenderness. There was no repair. There was no, like I said, inquiry. It was just, this happened to you. I was a victim, and this is now I have to clean this up for you, and you're just a pain in the butt. Right? Like, so why would I come to you, when I was abused by a boyfriend? Why would I come to you when I got slapped in the face by a boyfriend? Why would I come to you when he pulled my hair? Why would I come to you when, I felt assaulted? Why would I tell you anything? Why would I come to you when during my marriage very bad things happened? Why would I come to you? And my family actually used my that trauma against me. "Well, it was your fault. You didn't tell us it was that bad. It was your fault. You never let us in." Okay, no problem. So, toxic families are very thick in the weeds. Toxic families are drenched in denial. Toxic families only see it from one perspective, theirs. whoever the members are in the toxic family, and the more toxic the family, the more there's a scapegoat, there's a truth teller. We're gonna destroy that person and try to control their narrative. We don't want you to see what's really going on in your truth teller because you will corrupt the whole balance. I am the narcissistic parent. The way I see it is the way it should go. And everybody else is just a minion in my orbit. And then you have this person or this kid who's like, I'm done, and that's what happened. So you couldn't go, you couldn't tell. You didn't feel safe. Bad things happen, so you don't go home to mom and dad. You don't say anything. And then when your life gets really bad, you're blamed for it because you didn't tell us. You didn't tell us. You didn't tell us. So I created this session for the truth tellers out there, for the people who have grown up feeling seen but not heard. And some of us even grew up not feeling seen, like you weren't even seen. Not only were you not heard, you weren't even seen. And the way your parents looked at you, the disgust in their eyes, like, really fractured your soul, meaning or actually your soul is perfect. It fractured the lens through which you perceive self, which is what all of my courses I've created to help correct that perceptual lens by which you view self. It is a process of unfolding. It could take up to a year to, like, really shift, but if not now, when? That's always been my motto. And so I've created this session for you. I want you to know that I see you. I get it. I am you. I've been there. I understand it. And now I see myself through a much healthier lens. It's not the lens of I'm perfect and I'm better than you. It's the lens of I have compassion for the broken pieces inside of me. I have compassion for the lower state of self or awareness of self that viewed myself through that fractured lens and distorted my understanding of self and caused me to implode and caused me as a codependent to go inside and focus on taking care of everybody else, to wash the stain of shame off, to try not to be a burden. I have compassion for that part of myself, but I also have accountability for how being raised that way and having that faulty subconscious programming, having that distorted lens can also become a source of narcissism where I'm trying to get something from the other person to soothe a lack inside of myself. I also hold myself accountable for that piece. I also hold myself with compassionate accountability for this idea that I'm going to have to learn how to think better and be emotionally regulated. And I'm going to have to learn how to not go down rabbit holes when my mind wants me to worry about what other people think about me. Telling the truth and being misunderstood. This is a big full-time job for me as somebody who's comes from childhood trauma, psychological twisted trauma, in which I never felt safe. I never felt safe. And so if you resonate with any of this information, please know that there is a way out. I have created a three-part system that I call the Conscious Healing Academy that starts with the 12-week breakthrough method. We move into the 8-week masterclass and eventually soul school. And this is a method of unfolding. This is a method of healing at the neurological and the subconscious level. This is a process that um, pulls in philosophy, pulls in spirituality and psychology, and positive psychology, as well as gentle accountability, a little bit of tough love, and self understanding and gnosis, like self knowledge. And for the person who can hear it, for the person that this resonates with, it's like you're gonna feel a pull on your heart. You're gonna feel a pull on your soul, and something inside of you is gonna say, "I don't maybe understand everything she's saying, but it's resonating. It's resonating." I do encourage you to take the first step towards healing the self and exploring the self, exploring the self. Do not die thinking you know everything. Do not die. It's the worst thing in the world is to think you know everything. How many parents out there today on their phones? My daughter sent me a picture of a little girl in the background on her phone. She couldn't be more than 5 or 6 years old, on her phone at the beach with her mother standing above her on the phone at the beach. and my granddaughter playing in the sand, and this couple, this mom and daughter were in the background. And I said to my daughter, I said, "Did you notice the mom and the daughter in the background?" She said, "Mom," she said, "they were like that the entire time I was there." And she said, and the one time the little girl went on the slide, the mother scolded her for not going down the slide the right way, and then went right back to her phone. And so this mom may think she knows everything about raising a 5-year-old little girl. She might think she knows everything, and that's a dangerous thing. So exploring the boundaries of knowledge, just keep pushing, making the big connections. It is just so fulfilling and it brings such meaning to your life. And this is not a criticism of moms out there who are getting caught up in their cell phones and social media and the narcissistic supply of it all. I get it. The more unmet narcissistic needs you have as a child, the more narcissistic needs you're going to have as an adult. And the easier, the more non-resistant way to receive the narcissistic supply, even if it is in a superficial, materialistic, and totally dysfunctional way, there's gonna be a natural tendency to explore that, and trust me, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all of these platforms, they absolutely know that, and you're being exploited, and they've done studies on that, and there is a better way. And how we help future generations is people like me who have broken through. We tell our stories and we create opportunities for others to hear our stories, to learn from us, and then to follow in our footsteps to blaze the trail for future generations. And that's all that any of us can do. And then it's up to the next generation. So if this resonates with you, please visit www.lisaaromano.com. You can visit my online courses. The 12-week breakthrough coaching program is available live once a year and on demand for 50% off, as is all of the other classes as well. But I do recommend that you take the classes in order: the 12-week class, the 8-week masterclass, and the 10-week Soul School, a course in the quantum science of love consciousness for the best results. Namaste, everybody. Until next time, it's about to the love and light that is absolutely in you. Hey, if you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz.